So everything I'll be talking about this evening will revolve around you as a person. So when we're talking about personal branding, let me first talk about the purpose. Why is it important? Why is it necessary? Personal branding is important, whether you're a student, whether you're a career person, whether you're a business person, whether you are um, a political person, whether whatever, in fact, whether you're a clergy, personal branding is important because in life, people define you by what they first perceive about you. Then, secondly, by what they experience about you. Then, thirdly, by the memories they can gather about you. So, people will define you based on how they perceive you. That's number one. Based on how they've experienced you or the kind of experience they've had when they encountered you. And number three, the memories of you that are left with them. That is how people define you. So if you understand these three aspects of your brand, first of all, the impression, how people perceive you. Secondly, the experience, the kind of experience people have when they come around you, when they interact with you, when they engage you. And three, the kind of memories that people live with after an encounter with you. When you are able to master these three aspects, you've mastered personal branding. In fact, you've mastered anything called branding, whether it's personal or corporate. So, like I said initially, your brand is you, it begins with you. So, whether it is a person or a business, there is first of all an impression that people catch when a business comes in town and begins to advertise. People get impressions and they begin to form perceptions about you. And probably that will give them um, a reason to want to believe you or give you a benefit of doubt to buy your product or hire your services. And then when they come around, they begin to have experiences. And after the experiences, the next thing is they are left with a memory. Now, the memory will determine whether they will come back or not, whether they will want to have a second experience or not. So you've bought some product and the experience was so amazing, and then you always long for the same product again and again. There is one biscuit in town that somebody was cracking a joke the other day. He said that if you want to build a house this year, avoid this biscuit. I don't know how many of us have eaten munchkins. People had an experience about the munchkin. They tasted it and then it did something to their taste bud and they want to keep having a repeat experience. So that is a product. It can be the same thing for a human being. People encounter you once, and after that one encounter, they're like, oh man, I don't think I can have enough of this person. I always want to attend this program. I always want to, you know, I always want to maybe patronize this particular restaurant just because of this lady that always attends to me. Or I always want to patronize this business because of this receptionist. So that encounter that people have leaves them with a memory that works like, you know, a drug that they just want to keep having the same encounter again and again and again. So that is one importance of building a brand. So when I said branding begins with you, what it means is that you are the one to define how people will perceive you. You are the one to first define how you want people to perceive you. I'm so glad that the previous class you had was on productivity, So everything has still been centering around the theme of personal development. Now there is something about attraction, about people becoming attracted to you that has to do with value, perception of value. People are attracted to you based on how much value they perceive in you. People are attracted to you based on how much value they perceive in you. The more the value people see in you, the more they get attracted to you. The more the value people see in you, the more they get attracted to you. And people can't see what you are not projecting. People will not be able to see what you are not projecting for them to see. It is what you project that people can see. So personal branding, like I said, it begins with you. You are the one to define how people will perceive you, and people will not perceive you higher than the level of value they can discern in you. So I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know if the dots are already joining for somebody. Let me get a feedback. Is that making sense to somebody?
Yes,
Yes,
it's
sir.
making
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank
It's
you so
making
much for
sense,
the
sir.
feedback. Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much for the feedback. So when it comes to impression, impressions are formed in seconds. Impressions are formed within seconds. From the way you walk, from the way you talk, from the way you dress, from the way you smile, from the way you carry yourself. In fact, from the association people see you with, the kind of person you are working with already creates an impression about you. Or is it a picture you're sharing on Instagram, on Facebook, on Pinterest? The person you're snapping that picture with, the person we are seeing you in that picture with, already creates an impression. So impressions are formed in seconds. It can be a jersey you're wearing, it already creates an impression. You're wearing either Arsenal jersey, you're wearing Barcelona jersey, you're wearing, whatever. Impressions are formed in seconds. You're in a function, in a corporate meeting, in a gathering, and then you're asked to introduce yourself. The moment you carry the mic, the moment you stand up to carry the mic to introduce yourself, you're already creating an impression. You're walking into church on Sunday. The way you walk in is already creating an impression. It's time for Q&A in an event, and you're asking a question. How you ask that question is already creating an impression. So impressions are created with the very tiniest and sometimes unseemly things of life that we do on a daily basis. So, like I said initially, branding begins with what? The impression you're creating. Are intentional with the kind of impression that we are creating on a daily basis about ourselves, about the products that we sell, about the services that we sell. Are you aware that people are actually forming opinions about you just because of the way you talk, just because of the way you are dressed, just because of the way you walk, just because of the way you carry yourself? Are you aware that these little things that look like they don't matter, are you aware that these are the things that people use in judging you? So it's very practical. Branding is very practical. One thing about branding has several definitions. In fact, the number of definitions you will find about branding, if you go on Google right now, may be equal to the number of brand experts we have existing at the moment. So there are several definitions of branding you will see. There are several definitions of a brand you will come across. However, how you will know a valid definition of branding is by number one, a valid definition of branding will never go against the principles of human psychology because brand building has to do with human beings and how we think. So any definition of branding that contradicts principles of human psychology, how people think, how people behave, it is invalid. Any definition of branding that contradicts principles of effective communication is invalid because branding is actually communication. Like I said, the impression you are creating about yourself is the very first portal through which people view your brand. So impression is actually a media, is actually communication in itself. When you are creating an impression, you are saying something directly or indirectly. So any definition of branding that contradicts principles of effective communication or principles of human psychology, these are the two lenses with which you know a valid definition of branding. So when we are talking about branding, we are talking about how you are communicating who you are, how you are communicating the value you carry, how you are communicating what you stand for, how you are communicating where you're going in life. And the question I ask is, are you intentional with these things? When you're walking out of your room, you're walking out of your house, are you intentional about how you look? Are you intentional about how you talk? Are you intentional about how you walk? Are you intentional about the things you are projecting? Intentionally, subtly, or, you know, directly. Are you intentional about these things? So that's one. The second thing is the experience people have when they come in contact with you. So impression can draw men to you. Impression happens from a distance. People don't need to get close to you before they begin to form an impression about you. They can form an impression about you from a distance. So the impression people form about you from a distance is what will determine whether they want to come close. Now the question is, when they come close, does the experience, the anticipation that the impression created? When people come close to you, does their experience with you match that anticipation that the impression you gave them created in their minds? So when you give an impression of this is who this person is, when I come close, did I see you as that impression you created? So it is possible to actually create a false impression, something that you are not. So you can put on filters to mask who you really are, and outwardly you're projecting something that is not true, that is not authentic, and people can get swayed by those impressions. But the question is, can you validate the impression with your experience? You can create an impression of being a person of value by the way you walk, by the way you talk, by the kind of clothes you're wearing. The question is, when we come close, do we really see a commensurate value that the impression you gave us created in our minds? So impression is like the business card you throw out, for people to catch a signal and all of that. And then you're trying to draw them close. Now the question is, when they come close, what do they see? Because at this point, it is what they see, what they encounter, that determines the memory they live with. And there is one very popular definition of a brand that you will always see anywhere you go. You will always hear or read that a brand is what people say about you when you are not in the room. A brand or your brand is what people say about you when you're no longer in the room. So imagine that I bought a product or I hired someone for a service. And after the whole encounter, we dismissed. And then I go back to maybe my home, I go back to maybe my church, I go back to my office place and all of that. And someone begins to ask me, oh, how was your weekend? And part of my weekend experiences was this product I bought. Or part of my weekend experiences was this service I hired somebody for. And I began to recount my experience. Oh, something happened over the weekend. I had a plumber. The plumber messed up my day, this and that. I'm already talking about the plumber. Perhaps I may even mention his name. So I'm already talking about the plumber. And that is a brand there. So your brand is what people say about you when you are not in the room. And what they will say about you when you are not in the room is a product of what they encountered when they were with you. What they will say about you when you are not in the room will be a product of what they encountered when they were with you. So branding is a very important topic that everybody should understand. There was a day I was listening to Pastor Chris Ayakilome, and he was saying something very, very interesting. And he was talking about, he says, see, as a parent, teach your children how to ask questions in class. Teach your children how to answer questions in class. Teach your children how to be wrong and not be afraid of being wrong. Teach your children how to speak up, whether they are right or they are wrong. Because the world actually favors the bold. And he was sharing some of his, experiences and all of that. And I was like, wow, I could resonate. Many of us were not taught or were not indoctrinated or raised to be outspoken. Many of us were not raised, to speak up. We were raised to just sit down and listen while others are talking. Many of us were not raised, or we didn't grow up being bold enough to contribute what we feel, to contribute our own views, to contribute our own opinions at the table. So we're only sitting and then listening to others while they contributed. But that is something that is anti-branding. If you really want to be a brand and build a brand, you must be intentional with projecting yourself. You must be intentional with speaking up when it matters. You must be intentional with showing up when it matters. You must be intentional with telling your story, with sharing your views and your opinions. You must be intentional with making people know and see you for who you truly are. You must be intentional with standing for something and being known for something. You can't build a brand if you're always hiding under other people's opinions, seconding other people's thoughts. You can't build a brand that way. You must find your voice and own it if you want to build a brand. So, like I said when I started, your brand begins with you. Your brand starts with you. And you are the one to define how you want people to perceive you. So the very first step in building a brand is defining who you are. Who are you as a person? Who are you? Who are you can be where you're coming from, your story, the battles you faced, you fought in life, the victories you've won, the encounters you've had, the experiences you've had in life. Who are you could be where you're headed, where you're going in life, what your vision is, what you're aspiring to become. And who are you could be what your day-to-day looks like. What are you doing on a daily basis? What are you doing with yourself? What do you do for a living? How do you spend your day? How do you spend each day? If you're meeting somebody for the first time, maybe you're meeting a girl, a guy, an opposite sex for the first time, and you're interested in each other and you want to get to know more about each other. The three critical areas you really want to know is number one, where are you coming from? What's your story? Number two, where are you going? What's your vision? And number three, what do you do on a daily basis? What does your day-to-day look like? When you know these three areas, you assume you have a good understanding, a sufficient understanding of who the person is. So who are you? In retrospect, who are you? What's your story? In terms of your daily engagement and activity, who are you? In terms of your vision, where you're going, who are you? So that can be an assignment for tonight. You may want to have some solitude moment and do some self-probing to really know who are you. What are the values you stand for? What are the things you have come to believe about life? What are your core values? What are your principles? What are the principles you hold dear? These are the things that form who you are. What's your purpose? What purpose are you living for? What's your mission? The thing we call purpose in personal branding is the same thing we call mission in corporate branding. The technical your purpose is why the validity of anything is in the purpose behind its existence. You cannot judge something valid or invalid if you don't know why it exists. You cannot judge an action if you don't know the reason behind the action. So the validity of anything is in the purpose behind its existence. So why do you exist? The strength of your brand is in the difference your existence is making. The strength, the power of your brand is in the difference that your existence is making. What do we miss when you're no longer in the room? You're working in an organization, you're in a school, you're even in your family. What do we miss when you're no longer there? That's the strength of your brand. You might have heard it somewhere that people value you, the weight of your value is resident in two areas. Number one, people value you based on the weight of the problem that you solve. People value you based on the weight of the problem that you solve. And number two, people value you based on the difficulty in finding a suitable replacement for you. People value you first by the weight of the problem that you solve. And number two, by the difficulty in finding a replacement for you. And these are the things that are born out of your mission as a person, out of your purpose. What's the weight of the problem that you solve? How difficult is it to find a replacement for you? So you need to know why you are here. What am I doing here? What's my purpose? What validates my existence? So when you know who you are, the next thing you need to know is talking about building a brand. What value am I creating? Now you know who you are. Now you know where you're coming from. You know where you're going. The next question is, what value am I creating? What difference am I making? The second part of that question will be, who am I serving? Who are the people I am serving? What problem am I solving for them? Or what a relief am I bringing to them? What difference am I making in their lives? What impact am I making in their lives? Who are the people I'm called to serve? So, what value am I creating and who am I creating the value for? What difference am I making in their lives? What change, what transformation am I bringing to them? So, you need to begin to ask yourself on a daily basis, what is my brand? What do people know me for? If they can't remember my name, what other second thing can they attach to my identity? In the case where they can't remember my name or my name skips their mind, what is that second thing that they can attach to my identity? Because your brand is your second name. Your brand is that thing people remember and people can, connect to you or connect with you. So I will wrap up here. It's just a short exposition really. And if there is something for you to take home, never forget that your brand begins with the impression you create. The second thing, the experience you give to people, and the third thing, the memory you leave in the minds of people. And your brand always begins with you. You are the one to define how you want to be perceived. You are the one to define people to have about you. You are the one to define the kind of memory you want to leave in the minds of people. And the weight of your brand lies in the difference you're making, in the value that people can attach to you when they come across you. So, building a brand is actually about creating a legacy. It's about building something that people can trust you for. It's about having something that people can trust you for, knowing having something that people can, recognize you with or recognize you for. That is what building a brand means. At this point, I'll be taking questions. If there are questions, personal questions, not practical questions, I'd like to take one or two before we call it a night.
Thank you very much, Mr. Simeon. That was so enlightening. Please, if you have your questions,
Thank
you
you
can
very
put
much,
them in
ma'am.
the chat box, or you can just raise up your hand to ask your question so that we'll take them immediately. Okay, while the questions are coming in, Mr. Simeon, I have a question. Um, so you made mention of the fact that it is
Okay,
important for everybody to be careful. Please, can you hear me?
very well.
Okay. You made mention of the fact that it is important that everyone should be careful on the impression they give on people, be it your brand, that is in terms of maybe business or what you do, or even you as a person, because whatever impression one has on you, especially as a person, can automatically affect your brand, especially when you give the example of a plumber, giving you a bad day and everything. So I want to ask because there are instances and circumstances where it just happened that the first impression you give to a particular person might not turn out good or well, be it whether it's you meeting the person on personal basis, or maybe the first business transaction you have with this person did not exactly go well. It's something that you can tag a bad first impression. So what remedies are there to rectify this kind of thing? Because most of the times it does not, the first impression does not always mean that that is how it is. So in a situation where you've already given off or started off on the wrong foot, how do we rectify this thing? Especially when you know it's going to affect your brand as your business or even you as a person.
Amazing. All right, that's a very powerful question. And then I will attend to it. So, before I go to answer the question, I just dropped something in the chat section. So it's a brand clarity guide, more like a workbook, and it is free. It's available on my website, simeontaiwo.com. The direct link is in the chat room so that anyone who needs maybe to know what kind of questions should I ask myself? How do I uncover these things you've talked about? You're building a small business, you're yet to gain some level of clarity and all of that. So this guide can really help you. So you can download it, it's free. All right, so let me go to the question. It is important that first of all, I said that you have to be intentional with the kind of impression you're creating. It's important. So one way I would answer that question is you need to understand the science of creating impressions. Like you need to know how to create the right impressions. That it's very important. It's very important. You're going to a place to meet somebody. Maybe it's going to be a first time encounter. Like they said, there is no second chance to create a first impression. So maybe you're going for an interview, get what I'm saying, or you're going for a business meeting with somebody, or you're going for, it's a a discovery meeting with a client, a prospect, and you're going to be meeting the person for the very first time. It's important to know the kind of questions to ask the person, the kind of conversations to bring to the table. It's important to know, what are the things this person likes, or you're even going for an interview. You need to first of all research about the company, know who they are, what they do, what their services are, what was their latest achievement, so that you can have some very strong angles to come in from. So sometimes the bad impression can be a result of lack of proper preparation. So it's always good that you're prepared. As long as you have time, to, do some background work. It's always important important that we prepare. It's the same thing with introducing yourself. Many persons don't know how to introduce themselves. It's as bad as that. Many persons don't know how to introduce themselves. My name is this and that, and they just do it in a very lackadaisical, wishy-washy way, and they sit down, and it's so watery. Nothing to take home, nothing to strike people, to strike a chord in people's hearts. You need to learn how to introduce yourself in public, in a gathering, in a meeting, anywhere. And the truth is, these things are rehearsed. You need to rehearse it again and again. When you see people who talk well, don't assume it just landed on them. No, they rehearsed. When you meet people who perform well in the public, it's not just a talent or a gift. No, they rehearsed. They did the hard work. Waking up maybe in the midnight, whenever it's comfortable, standing behind the mirror, holding their toothbrush or whatever it is they hold, and they are practicing. So I really need to talk about that aspect because it's very important. You cannot build a brand by luck. You cannot build a brand by chance. There has to be some level of hard work and intentionality that goes into it. Like, let me use myself as an example. 2018, when I started my business, the truth before God and man, I sat down on my dining table and I began to ask myself, what are the things I want people to say about me or about this company I'm building? What are the reviews, the feedback I want people to, what are the words I want people to use, when they are talking about me? Or what are the words I want people to use frequently when they are talking about me? And I begin to list out those words, those qualities I want people to use when they are talking about me. I begin to list them out. Attention to detail, excellence, professionalism. I begin to write out just a few of them that were dear to me that I love when I see. And what was the next thing I did? I asked myself, what do I need to do for people to perceive me in this light? What are the things I must do for people to perceive me in this light? And what was the next thing? I began to make sure I did those things. I began to make sure I did those things. I intentionally paid attention to the hard work that brings about perceiving me with those qualities. Now, what was the testimony? The testimony is that within the period of 1 year or two, the reviews the company began to have started having those words in them. Those words like professionalism, those words like attention to detail and all of those things began to reflect in the reviews that people began to send to us. And right now, if you search on your Google, branding agency in Port Harcourt, my company is number one. If you search on Google, branding agency in Port Harcourt, you will see Clarilife Global as number one. That's a personal testimony in this subject matter. The second aspect of my answer will be, as we are number one when you're searching for branding agency in Port Harcourt, it doesn't mean that every client we have ever served, all of them, 100%, were very happy. There were times we didn't meet up to the standard. Yes. This is the other aspect of the answer I need to provide to create a balance. There were times they didn't meet up to the standard. And that will always happen, whether you like it or not. You're a human being, you are not an angel. You make brand promises, you create impressions, people are, attracted to you and all of that. One reality of building a business is that it is easier to say you deliver on time when you just have 5 persons per month that you handle. As long as you are good at what you do, a time will come that will increase from 5 to 50. The question is, how easy will it be to keep delivering on time when they are now 50? You will now know that there will now be need for other things than just being nice or being good. You will now need structure. You will now need to hire more people. You will now need to learn how to lead people. A lot of other complexities now, mount up, add up to your job. So there'll be times like that, sincerely speaking, you will not meet up. However, how you approach the situation is what salvages the whole thing. If you approach it with humility, accepting that, okay, yes, I was wrong, and finding a way to solve the problem for the angry customer, the angry client, you can turn an angry customer to a raving fan that even brings more customers for you. So, in a case where a first impression was messed up, the next thing, the next card to play is how to ensure that the angry or the disgruntled customer or client is treated in a way that the anger is appeased and you convert the person to become a fan. Yes, money might go into it. Yes, profit may not be realized. In fact, losses may be incurred in the whole activity. However, an angry customer who came to give you feedback and you are able to win the person back is more important than any profit you can ever make. I always tell people, if the only thing you make from a transaction is money, you have lost a great deal. If the only thing you gain from any transaction is money, you have lost a great deal. The most important thing to gain is a new customer and is a new, let me call the person evangelist. Because when you turn a person from being a customer to becoming a happy, somebody who happily tells other people about you, you have gained more than money. There are people I've worked with that the sum total of the transaction we did wasn't up to 500,000 naira. But in time we call customer lifetime value, CLV, they've brought in millions for the company. So first impression is great. However, in cases when first impression is, below the standard, you can use a second impression. Yeah, there's no guarantee that there'll be a second impression, but you can use a second impression in case where the second impression comes, you can use it to salvage the first. So that will be my answer.
Wow, thank you very much for that response, sir.
You're
Okay.
welcome, man.
So when the first impression fails, use a second impression where it is available to make up for the first impression. Thank you so much. Okay, I think there's a question in the chat box. I'll just read it out, sir. Ahmed said, "Thank you very much, sir. You've shared a lot about personal branding, but my question is money a key criterion for personal branding?"
Yeah, thank you so much, Ame. Money is a medium of exchange, and as a medium of exchange, it's a criteria, very powerful criteria. However, depending on the level of life a person is at the moment, When the money is not there, another medium of exchange can be used in the place of money. This is one of the many articles you will find on my website when I was talking about time is money or something. I can't remember the exact title of the article, but I was helping people to understand something that at every point in time, you have something to exchange for what you want. At every point in time, you always have something to exchange for what you want. Sometimes it may not be money. Sometimes it can be your time. Sometimes it can be who you know or what you know. Sometimes it can be your energy. But there's never a time in life that you don't have something to give in exchange for what you want. So money is simply a medium of exchange. Money can help you buy time. So what should cost you 5 days, with money in your hand, you can get it done in a few hours. But if the money is not there, you happily and audaciously use your 5 days. That's it. And if you know somebody who can help you with the leverage or something, to achieve that thing, and with that person on your side or with that person coming through for you, it can take 2 days. Good, you play your card. Life is a market. And in a market, on the market of life, value exchange is the wheel on which life runs on. There must be something you are giving in exchange for what you want. You cannot get anything for nothing. So it's the same thing with personal branding or with branding generally. It's either you're using your time, you're using your relationship, or you're using money. In market, there is something called cost of customer acquisition. So sometimes there are times my marketing staff, they go out and then they meet prospects and they need to print out proposals, need to print out materials for market and all of that. There is no guarantee that the money we are using to do all of that will be recouped. There is no guarantee. It is called cost of marketing. When you're running Facebook ads or Instagram ads and all of that, the money you are spending is cost of marketing. And Facebook will even give you part of the metrics they give you, cost of customer acquisition. You will see it there. So that is money. But in case where you get a customer and that customer begins to market you to other people, and instead of you to be using money to now get other customers, it is the good work that is now bringing more customer. That is you using the quality of your work to replace time and to replace money. So the time you would have spent on marketing, what I've done in the past is doing the marketing. The money you could have spent on marketing, the people you have served in the past, they're now the one doing the marketing freely for you without asking for any charge. So branding needs money. But when you're strategic in your game of branding, you cut down the money you spend. You begin to use other currencies other than money. You begin to use people. Not that you are manipulating people. You get what I'm saying? Let me create that balance. You are not manipulating people, but you are leveraging on the people you have at your disposal who are on your side. So that's that. So that's it. I don't know if that helps.
Thank you so much, sir. Ahmed Daniel, okay, I can see your emoji. That means the question was properly answered. Thank you so much. Please
All
remember,
right.
if you have a question, put it in the chat box. And if you don't, that means you're trying to say you've understood the topic properly. Okay, one more question, sir, from me while we wait for others, or we'll call it a night. I do hear at some point, especially now where there are a lot of content creators, online making content and posting, trying to build their brands and all of that. And then there is this, should I call it an underlying phenomena of people separating themselves from their brand, trying to say that their brand is not who they are, or who they are is not their brand. Let's say, for example, I think the context in which this will fit in perfectly is Christianity. You see a person who is a Christian posting content, or their content basically, that does not exactly aligns with his or her faith. And then when he or she is being asked, he says or she says that that is business, or that is me, that is online, this is me now, or that is that, and this is trying to just um, draw a line as to my different personalities. So what do you think? Does it affect, or does it in any way speak well on a person's personal brand? Is it something that should flow from who you are to what you do, or you can keep them at two distinct level and it doesn't affect the relationship, or affects your brand per se on what you are trying to promote? Because I don't know if the question was clear enough.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. And it's a question I love to answer. Well, I love to answer it because I'm a believer, and I'm very strong on my Christian faith. But then I will try to be as objective as possible. Um, so, like I said when I started, your brand is who you are. There is no addition. There is no subtraction. Your brand is who you are. And one one principle of life that I've come to believe and live by is do one thing is how you do everything. How you do one thing is how you do everything. So you can't really say I am an early riser, or should I say I'm a punctual person when I'm in this state, but when I go to that particular state, I'm a late comer. If you're a punctual person, you're a punctual person. If you're a late comer, you're a late comer. How you do one thing is how you do everything. And then there is something called cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is, think it's actually a psychological flaw. Yeah, it's actually a psychological flaw. And then it's a kind of experience when someone is holding conflicting beliefs or attitudes, or when their behavior contradicts their belief. You can read more about cognitive dissonance. When people are contradicting themselves, that's cognitive dissonance. A lot of people suffer from it. And this psychological issue is something that can affect your brand in the long run. So you can't really say you're a Christian. Permit me, my own definition of Christianity is not just someone who goes to church, or going to church can be a 21st century, in thing. It's not like a status to go to church. Like, do you go to church on Sunday? It's like an ethical thing to do, to just go to church on Sunday. So some people, it doesn't really go beyond face level. They just go to church because it is a social thing to go to church. They go to church for business, for business contacts. They go to church to meet, to do business transactions, to connect with people. The same way people go to club to connect with people. They go to polo club. They go to. So Many people have reduced church to just a social gathering where they can connect with people, So to some persons, that is what Christianity is all about. I go to church on Sunday, I have some contact. So it's like a social networking thing for them to go to church. But for some others, church is a place of gathering where they meet with fellow believers and where they have fellowship with, you know, people of the same faith and with God. So it is beyond a social gathering. It is more of a covenant, gathering, where the Bible says, "Do not forsake the gathering of yourselves one with another," and all of that. So I'm talking from that second area. So you can't say you're a Christian who goes to church, who identifies with Christ, and then on your social media, the first slide we are seeing on your Facebook story is somebody showing a nakedness. And that is your tactic to draw people so that they can swipe to the second slide and see the product. Personally, that is cognitive dissonance. You are contradicting what you claim to stand for, period. And one principle about branding is people will trust you more for what you stand for what they can see that you stand for, than for what you say, than for what you say. So if we can see through you that you really stand for something, that this is what you believe, this is the values you hold dear, this is what you stand for, these are the principles guiding your life. If we can see it beyond you just telling us, if we can see it in the consistency of your behavior, the consistency of your practices, the consistency of your character that we have come to know you for, then there is a reason for us to trust you. So people won't just trust you because you are good at what you do. People will trust you because you stand for something that they believe in. And brand is actually trust. Yeah. Brand is a trust factor. That's the right way to put it. So I won't trust you because you're a good painter. You're good at painting. No. I will trust you because there is a standard that you live by, that if you are charging us for painting, you are not charging us based on how you have sized us up that we are rich. I can trust you because if you say this thing is going to be done in 5 days, truly it will be done in 5 days. Not because you have proclaimed it, but because over the years we have seen that anytime you give a deadline, you stick to the deadline. So trust comes from the consistency in the character that we see in you. So if you meet up the standard today, tomorrow you don't meet up, and it's like you only fulfill your brand promise by luck, we can't trust you. We would rather trust somebody who gives us 1 week and delivers in 1 week than someone who gives 2 days and that 2 day happens by luck. So there has to be a level of consistency in your standards that you uphold that will make us trust you. That is what a brand is. I believe I've been able to answer the question.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for that. Thank you so much. So, we have two more questions before we call it a night. From Mashkura, thank you, sir. Can you help us a little about how to introduce ourselves? You said we have to learn how to introduce ourselves. And then another question from the same person. What are the strategies that we can use in order to develop ourselves or to make our self-branding apart from social media? Okay, to make a self-branding separate from social media, that is to basically get a brand that is not really or affiliated with social media, sir. Those are the two questions.
Okay. Yeah, I believe I understand the question. So the first one, it's it's a good it's a good question, and you can always find an answer to that question anywhere you turn to, even on YouTube and all of that. You can see more practical, answers, and even um, you know, demonstrations of how you should introduce yourself. So one of the best ways to introduce yourself is, first of all, with your name. I am. So I would rather say I am Simeon Taiwo than say my name is Simeon Taiwo. They use by use of English, they mean the same thing, but psychologically they don't mean the same thing. Just like as soon as possible is really not the same thing as ASAP. Psychologically, they don't mean the same thing. ASAP psychologically means I'm going to do it right away, like right now, right on time. As soon as possible simply means, okay, you go wait till when I get time. So psychologically, they don't mean the same thing. So I am Simeon Taiwo simply means I own the name. It is my name is Simeon Taiwo. It's like somebody just gave me this thing. I don't even know I don't even know what that name is doing here. So owning your name is actually how you begin. Own your name. Now, the second thing you need to have when introducing yourself is you need to know what is that thing that is unique to you? What is that thing that is peculiar to you? That is your strength, that is your selling point. That no one can take this thing from you. It is you, it is who you are. For me, I'm a systems thinker. I own it anywhere, everywhere. And it can be something that is beyond what you learned. Yeah, it can be because you can learn a skill. You can learn a skill, you can learn a craft. The craft you learned or the skill you learned is not you because thousands of other people learned that same thing just as you did. And in fact, you will meet thousands of other people who are even better than you in that skill or in that craft. You get what I'm saying? So limit how you introduce yourself based on what you just learned some months ago on Coursera, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, or whatever. Find that thing that is really unique to you. It encapsulates who you are, how you view life, how you do things. The uniqueness you bring to the table. You get what I'm saying? Now you can now go deep into the service you render and all of that. You can now go into some of your key metrics. I call them key metrics because you must have done some calculations to know them. For instance, in my introduction, I will say things like over the past 7 years, I have done so for people, or I have worked with 10,000 brands to do this, or I have trained 20,000 students on so. Is a powerful gravitas. It adds a weight to your identity when you're introducing yourself. Or I've spent 10 years in this industry. I have a 10-year experience in so, and so. You are accumulating there is something we call brand equity. You are accumulating the brand equity of the time you have spent on something into your introduction, and it adds weight to the introduction. Like, let me give you a tip. Branding is not really what you say. Branding is the creativity with which you say it. Branding is not necessarily what you say, but the creativity with which you say it. All right. So, yeah, you can find more tips on social media, on YouTube, on how to introduce yourself. Other things you can bring into the introduction is maybe what you do, like your business, your service, you get what I'm saying, your product, and then maybe years in business, maybe how many customers you've served, and all of that. So those are the things that add weight, that add value, the perceived value, that add some kind of perceived value, to who you are as a person. So that's just some of the tips I can give to you. And then talking about building a brand outside social media, developing yourself, or strategies to develop yourself and build your brand outside or apart from social media? That's how I understand the question. So, one thing you must understand about brand building is that brand building has always existed even before social media. Social media only came as an amplifier. Brand building has been existing. So, it's simply about number one, knowing who you are. Like I said, know who you are. Take some time to reflect, to know who you are. Find yourself, find your voice. And number two, always develop yourself. Develop yourself. Never accept a crude version of yourself. You can always improve yourself. And number three, one aspect of yourself that everybody must learn to improve is communication. No matter how valuable you are, if you cannot communicate it, you are not valuable. No matter how valuable you are, if you cannot make me see it, you are not valuable. It is only God that sees into the heart. Men can only see what you make them see, period. And the world runs on perception. The world is ruled by perception. If you can't make me perceive the value you carry, I'm sorry, I'm helpless. So you must learn how to communicate. It's a non-negotiable. You must learn how to communicate. If there is one thing that your brand will thrive on, it is how well you communicate it. And there are areas you can always leverage to communicate your brand. Even if you're not doing social media, you must learn to make people know what you have, starting from your grassroots, your family, your church, your mosque, wherever it is you worship, your street, your the grassroots, your environment. People around you should know, at least starting from where you are, starting from where you are, from the grassroots. People around you should know that this is what this person does. This is what this person is good at. When it comes to this thing, it is this guy. People should know that with you. That is outside of social media. Grassroots. Think of grassroots. At the grassroots level, what do people know you for? And one thing you must understand is that never limit yourself to the realities or what is prevalent in your immediate environment. Don't just look like every other person in that environment. That is not how to build a brand. When you want to build a brand that is global, that is thriving, that has a difference, you must look from where you are, not at where you are. You must always look from where you are. So look at other places. How is it being done here? In countries outside of my country, how are they doing it? In other states outside of my state, how are they doing it? Because we're talking about something that can differentiate you from the rest. So the 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 answer to that is social media is not the beginning of branding. Social media only came as an amplification of branding. But then when you're talking about building your brand outside social media, you must learn to add value to yourself on a daily basis, and you must learn to communicate the value that you have. It's as simple as that. Yeah. So I believe we've been able to answer that, and we can call it a night. Or do we have any other question again?
Yes, sir. There's one more question that was just dropped now. Can you take it?
Oh, I think that will be the last because I need to
Yes, that'll be the
attend to
last.
other things. Yeah.
All right, sir. Um, Miss from Abba, can you throw more light on ways in which we can improve or make our branding as outstanding, top notch, and stand out among others?
Okay, I think that was just the last thing I just mentioned when I was answering the
Mm,
previous question. One simple way is don't do things the way other people around you are doing it. Look elsewhere. look elsewhere, be creative, be innovative. Always look for something to add to what others are doing. That's just it. When we're talking about extraordinary, it is ordinary plus extra, meaning you are adding something to what is available, to what is obtainable. If you're talking about extra natural, be supernatural, it is natural plus super, meaning you're adding something super to what is obtainable. So when you're saying outstanding, it's simply you are going out of what is standing. So that is just it. Top notch. When you're talking of a notch is like that's your radio, that radio that you turn the knob to get another station, you know. So every inch that you turn, you are going a notch higher, either a notch to the left or a notch to the right. So when you're saying top notch, it simply means you are turning it to the extra, to the extreme level. That is top notch. So it's like you're adding something to what is already available. So that is just what it means to stand out. Like you're looking at what others are saying, what others are showing, what others are portraying, and you're like, okay, this is what is obtainable. What can I add to it? You're asking, that is how to be innovative. What can I add to what is existing? It's as basic as that. And as someone who is always build and as someone who is always in the game of building a brand, at every point in time, you must always think of new things to add because what drew people to you yesterday will never be sufficient to keep them with you tomorrow. What drew people to you yesterday will never be sufficient to keep them with you tomorrow. So every now and then, you must always think of what new thing can I add to what I'm doing. So it's as basic as that. It's a game that is never ending. So I
Thank you
believe I've been
so
able to answer
much.
that. All right.
Yes,
It's a
yes,
pleasure.
you have. Thank you so much for the session tonight. We really learned a whole lot. And also thank you for sharing the link where we can get access to the book and get to know more about personal branding. Thank you so much
It's
once
a
again for
pleasure.
the session. We've learned so much and we are going to put this into practice to make our personal lives better. Thank you so much and
That's going to be
have a
that's going to
wonderful
be
night
interesting.
rest.
All right, and you, everybody in the room, thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much to the